Sure. Okay. How's my screen? Can everybody see it?
Looks great.
Cool. All right. Once again, my name is Jameka. I'm a partner engineer here at Niantic, and we're going to go a bit into building with VPS. So there we go. As an overview on like what is VPS? VPS is our visual positioning system, which allows you to synchronize your device against waste spots in the real world, either waste spots around the world, such as things we've imagined in our Jamboard session, or in a private waste spot that you've created for your personal use or specifically for your app's use. Using VPS, you can create immersive AR experiences at these locations in which users can interact with your shared AR content with centimeter precise precision. So this is possible because with our VPS service, we know exactly where the user is in relation to the monument or statue or sign, whatever it is that is the waste spot. So in this video you see here, you'll actually see the user is localizing against the face on that statue. And once we know exactly where that user is, he's actually going to place an object nearby, not necessarily on the statue, but nearby the statue, and we're able to accurately pinpoint where that item is. So another user comes around, they'll localize against that statue so that we understand exactly where that user is, and they're going to follow a clue to find where that other user placed the item right there in the water. So this is all powered using VPS and specifically waste spot anchors. So for waste spot anchors, these are what you're going to use to actually create persistent content using VPS. You'll create an anchor, it consists of a payload of information. It has the information on the rotation, the size, the scale, rotation, scale, and position of that anchor that you want to place. And you'll want to save that payload into either your own database or into the cloud so that we're able to restore that anchor when the user localizes in another session. So our workshop is going to be all about waste spot anchors. We're going to be creating this in a few minutes time. We'll get there. So I want to talk a little bit about Wayfarer. Our Wayfarer app will allow you to actually view VPS, actually all waste spots around the world. A waste spot may or may not be activated for VPS. You can imagine a large sign might not be a great VPS location, but it still is a good waste spot for people to meet up. And like in Pokemon Go, for example, it might be a nice spot for a gym, but it might not be a VPS enabled location. So using Wayfarer, you can determine if that particular waste spot has VPS enabled, and you can also contribute scans to turn it into a VPS enabled waste spot. And also using Wayfarer, you're able to create your own private waste spots so that you can test within the comfort of your home or within your neighborhood. This is a lot easier than needing to trek yourself to a VPS enabled waste spot that might be a significant walk or drive away. And coming soon, I know this is a feature that many of you have asked for, remote authoring. So you might have heard it called remote content authoring. We're calling it just remote authoring. You'll actually be able to use our geospatial browser over on lightship.dev to navigate around the map and actually click on each individual VPS enabled waste spot and see the mesh right there. You can navigate through the mesh in the browser, and you can even download the mesh to then import into Unity to use our other feature, which allows you to actually place waste spot anchors right within the Unity scene there so that you can test the experiments here using potentially video playback, or you deploy to the phone, go to that location, and your waste spot anchors are already there and should begin working. So these are all coming soon. Definitely stay tuned to hear more about the beta, and our roadshows will also go more into remote authoring. Great. So for the workshop itself, we're going to make what you see on the right, a simple little app that will allow you to create anchors, place them, and then save them for use in another session. So you see the little, if you're unfamiliar with our little mascot Dodie, you'll be placing little Dodie anchors around horizontal planes and then loading them back up in another session. So at this point, hopefully before you came, you already had a compatible version of Unity installed. If you don't, please get that started right now. Hopefully you can catch up partway through. It's a big download, but don't worry. You also need the latest version of ARDK. The latest version is 2.2.1. That's available over on lightship.dev. And while you're over in lightship.dev, please download the mock environments Unity package, which we'll be using with Virtual Studio. We also, for this particular workshop, have a custom package that Chanel will be sharing in chat that just kind of helps us get started quickly. I have some debug buttons that you can use so that we don't have to sit here and create buttons together. And if you also need an IDE of whatever choice you want to use, you can use Visual Studio Code, whatever it is you want to do, just not a text editor, please. All right, if we're all good to keep going, we're going to get started with actually creating. So I'm going to go slightly slowly at the beginning just to make sure that we're all at the same page. If you don't already have a Lightship API key, that's the first thing you're going to need to do. We won't be able to actually use VPS without an API key. Many of you probably already have an API key. You're free to use that one or create a new one. It doesn't matter, but we need some sort of API key. So head on over to lightship.dev and create an account if you don't already have one. And under the project section on the left, click new project so that you can generate a new key. So get that, copy it for later, and just kind of health check. How are we doing? I have to.
Let's give people a moment.
All right. Because if you have not created an account, it's imperative that you do so.
Can you guys use the thumbs up reaction if you have created an account already, just so we can have a idea of when to move forward? Great. Mish, Bill, Brandon, Brendan, awesome. Give us your thumbs up, Roland, Susan.
That's great. Yeah, I need to, I can't see your thumbs up, so thank you, Chanel, for giving me that update.
UI is ready. Awesome. I think we can move on. Yeah.
All right, nice. Yeah, so we'll probably go a little quicker then. While you are there on lightship.dev, make sure you download the latest version of ARDK and the mock environments. So just get that download started and we'll be using it shortly. So once you have those downloading, we'll go over to Unity and actually create a new Unity project. You'll want to use the 3D mobile as a template. We won't actually be deploying to the device today, but to set yourself up for success later, let's just create a 3D mobile project. And Unity is probably going to take a second to get loaded. I'm going to, on the side, also get my Unity up and running. So we'll be sharing that soon. And those of you that are familiar with Unity, you probably know what's about to happen. We're going to want to import the ARDK Unity package. We'll want to import the mock environments package, and we'll want to import that custom workshop package. So if you know what you're doing, go ahead and import those three. So if you have your packages, first you'll want to do the ARDK package, and then the mock environments, and also the custom Unity package. So let me get my Unity sharing. So I will very momentarily pause my share. Let's see. Okay, could I get a confirmation that you can see the presentation and Unity at the same time?
Yep, looks great.
Cool, perfect. So at this point, you all should have imported ARDK 2.2.1. and the mock environments as well, and the custom Unity package that Chanel shared. If you don't have that package, please ping in the chat and we'll make sure you get it. So what we want to do now is actually paste in that API key. So I have already added the ARDK auth config for you under resources, then ARDK. So just click the ARDK auth config in the project view towards the bottom and place in your API key in the inspector view that shows up on the right. With this, we'll actually be able to use the different features of ARDK. And without it, we will have errors and not be able to do anything. So once you place the API key here, we won't need to worry about using it again. It'll just be used for the remainder of our session. Cool. And so now if we go in our project view on the bottom left, you'll want to go to the scenes folder, and we're going to open up the workshop scene. We'll be building off of this scene here. Yeah, there we go. So go to the scenes folder, open up the new workshop scene. And now we'll start adding different managers from the ARDK into our scene. So in the project view again, you'll want to search for the AR scene manager. Make sure it's the AR scene manager, not the AR session manager. The AR scene manager is going to handle our AR session for us. So you'll want to drag the object into the hierarchy view on the left. I just did that on my right side here. I think, there we go. Let me make the window a little bigger for you. There we go. And drag and drop that into your hierarchy view. The scene manager consists of the AR camera, the AR scene camera that we're going to be using, and the session manager that we'll be using. So in the AR scene manager, we're also going to want to add a plane manager so that the ARDK can handle detecting the horizontal planes for us. So in this example, we're going to want to click on the AR scene manager, and then on the right side in the inspector, click add component, and we're going to add the AR plane manager. And just click to add that script. How are we doing? Just making sure we're not going too fast here.
Yeah, let's pause really quick. I think some people are still downloading.
Gotcha.
Yeah. We'll pause here. If you guys have questions, feel free to unmute yourself and ask Jameka about the steps.
Yeah, no
I
worries.
think we have a few questions about the API key.
Yep.
Since that's an easy one, maybe if you could just show in Unity where you put that again, kind of slowly.
Yeah, so let me pull out. So if you're using Unity's default view, your project view is kind of this bottom left tab. I'm just going to pull it out so we can see it better. Nope, I'm not going to pull it out. It's just going to get mad at me. It's fine. In the project view, you have this assets folder on the left. You'll want to open assets and then go to resources. And then under resources, there's another folder called ARDK. And once you go into that, there should be an object called ARDK auth config. So again, it's under assets and then resources. Under resources, we have ARDK, and within ARDK, click on the ARDK auth config object. And then on the right side of Unity, you'll have your inspector view, which you can inspect into that object. You'll want to paste your API key here. You don't need to click save or do anything further, just paste your API key in the inspector view. And it should show up right here.
Let's see if we can get confirmation from anyone that was missed the API key step. Does that solve the issue there?
Thumbs up or in the chat, let us know. Okay, great. API good. Ryan,
Cool.
Eli.
All right, great. Let me go back just a little bit. So after you get the API key set up, you'll want to open the workshop scene, which is in the scenes folder. So under assets, then scenes, then workshop. And double click that to, well, I already have it open, but double click that to open up the workshop scene in the Unity editor. And then from there, we're going to want to add an AR scene manager. So what you can do is search in the project view here. There's a search bar on the right side. Just search type AR scene manager, and only one object should pop up. You'll drag and drop from that project view, this little blue box, into the hierarchy view on the left side of the Unity editor. And that will add an AR scene manager into our scene here. And this AR scene manager will handle starting our AR session for us. It has an AR session manager and an AR scene camera attached to it. And so once we've added the AR scene manager, we're going to want to add an AR plane manager to help us with detecting horizontal planes. So first, let me just delete this so we can show you again. So you'll want to add a component and then just start typing AR plane manager and add that script. And so we're gonna now edit the AR plane manager just a little bit. So we'll actually change the plane prefab into an object that we can visualize. So when we use our phones or use the Unity editor to kind of scan a fake environment, this will actually put a texture on top of it so that we know what the horizontal planes are. So under the plane prefab, we have an existing one you can use under the assets folder here. So you want to click assets and then type plane to see we have a plane prefab and a debug plane. Let's do the plane prefab for this example. You can also see on the slides on the left, the kind of zoomed in GIF of this experience. And we'll change the detected plane type to horizontal. So this is an important step because we're only, in this example, we're going to place Wastebot anchors on the horizontal planes. So we need the AR plane manager to be able to detect horizontal planes. You can, in another example, you change it to everything or just vertical, but for this one, we're going to do horizontal. And next, this will take a little bit of time to get set up, but it's all right. Once we've finished with our AR plane manager, in the hierarchy view, you'll want to click on your workshop Wastebot controller, and we're going to want to start attaching objects to our workshop Wastebot anchor script. So first click on the workshop Wastebot anchor on the left side in the hierarchy view. And then you'll see in the inspector on the right, there's this object, this component called a workshop Wastebot anchor controller script. It'll be cut off on the side there. The script attached is already the workshop Wastebot anchor script, which is the starter code that I've given you guys. And then for the camera, if you click the object here, it'll recommend to you the AR scene camera, which is the compatible object in this scene. So we're going to just go through and start filling these out. Under camera, you'll want to use that AR scene camera that we got from the AR scene manager. The object prefab, we're going to look under our assets and actually search for Yeti, which will be a little prefab, which is just a pre-constructed object of our mascot Dodie, Yeti. And then for the status log and localization status text fields here, these are just some debug fields I've created for you guys so that you can see the state of localization and the state of the Wastebot anchor service right there on the screen without having to look at the console for logging. So if you click on the circle here, the status log, you'll just kind of match exactly what you see. The status log, click on the status log. Localization status, click on localization status. So if you look towards the slides, you can see your initial view has nothing set. And at the end of it, you should have your camera as the AR scene camera. The object prefab is set as a Yeti. The status log is the status log text field. And localization status will be set as the localization status text field. So this is the last step we'll have before we're going to jump into code. So I want to make sure we're all in a good state here before moving on.
Yep, let's pause. And if you have issues, feel free to put it in the chat or unmute.
Hi, Jameka. The two scripts that you have, are those part of the workshop package or RDK?
The two scripts.
Yeah.
So there should be one script, the workshop Wastebot anchor controller script, and the AR plane manager that should already come with ARDK.
Yeah. Okay. And the ones that you just dragged in there on the status log and the localization status, that was part of the workshop package?
Yeah, that's part of the workshop
Okay.
package.
Right. No, I have them. I just wanted to confirm.
Perfect.
Okay, you guys want to give us a thumbs up if you are ready and caught up. If you're quite behind, Braxton can help you guys in the chat as well, but kind of want to see how everyone is. So thumbs up. Awesome. Roland, Stefan, thank you. Eli is ready. Ryan is ready. Mark, Wilco.
Cool. It's pretty good.
Okay, yeah, maybe one more minute.
Okay.
Yeah.
My bad. I need to get the chat up.
Yeah, no worries. I'm helping you.
Appreciate it.
We're good on time. As expected.
Great. And yeah, if anyone ends up getting too far behind or just something doesn't work for them, we'll have the breakout rooms towards the end where I can individually help you. So don't stress, don't give up. We're going to get a working example at the end.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, I think we should be good now.
Cool. So what we're going to do next is actually open up the workshop Wastebot anchor controller scripts. Sorry, it's a mouthful, but you'll see this in the scripts folder. So go back to Unity and under assets, scripts, there should be a workshop Wastebot anchor controller script. And if you double click this within Unity, it should open up in your IDE of choice that Unity is aware of. So I won't actually be opening it up. I will just be talking about it on the slides here. You'll see that the code, the majority of the code is actually commented out. If you're familiar with programming, you'll understand you could just uncomment the code and things will start working again. If this is maybe one of your first or one of your early experiences with programming, these comments aren't going to be recognized when the code is run. So if you were to just press play, nothing is going to happen because the AR session isn't going to start because the compiler is ignoring any of the code that has the double slashes that are commented out. So what we're going to be doing step by step is going to each function and uncommenting the code by deleting those two slashes. So open up your script in your IDE of choice, and then we'll start going over function by function. Great. So under the workshop Wastebot anchor controller script, I'm just going to call it Wastebot anchor controller here in the slides. We have a few global variables that we're going to be making use of. Those 4 that we set earlier in Unity, the camera, object prefab, status log, and localization status objects are here within the global variables. We'll be referencing them a couple of times in the script. And then these other global variables that we're going to use are a key that we're going to use to store our anchors into the Unity player preferences, the AR session, and the Wastebot anchor service that we'll be using for VPS. So the first function we're going to do is to essentially start our AR session. Very simple. Under the onEnable function, we're just going to initialize our session by registering a session initialized event handler. There we go. And you probably could guess what's going to come next. On disable, we want to deregister that on session initialized event handler. Just to be sure, we want to make sure that we stop our AR session in between sessions so that there's nothing left on the phone when you're trying to initialize another session. So this is just best practices cleanup that we need to do. And now we're going to actually want to fill out that on session initialized function. This is going to be called once our AR session is initialized. So it'll give us an argument that we'll set as our AR session. And then we have another event handler that we're going to want to fill out, which is our on session ran. So we're going to register our on session ran function to the AR sessions ran method here. So if we go to our event handlers, you should see on session ran. And what we're going to want to do here is actually start our Wastebot anchor service. So the key, I'd say the most important function here is the location service.start line, because this is where VPS will actually start localizing. If you wanted localization to happen based off of a player action, you'll want to hold on calling localization service.start until you're ready for the user to start localizing against their scene. So let me slow down right here to make sure that we're all caught up. Everyone has their IDEs open, and we have currently enabled our on enable, on disable, on session initialized, and on session ran.
I think with a question, maybe it's been answered, but if we want to pause and answer the question for people to catch up, what does ran do?
In ran, we'll actually have our AR session initialized, and this is where we'll comfortably be able to start our VPS service. So the AR session is not necessarily ready until it's been run. I know it sounds a little odd, but first we initialize the session, and then once it's running, we're able to start our VPS service.
Great, thanks. I think we're good.
Cool. The next function that we're going to fill out is mostly for debugging purposes, but its purpose is very important. So on the on localization state updated function, this is where we're actually just going to be pasting the state into the localization status text field and the status log text field. Status log will only show something if there was an error. So hopefully we're not going to see that, but if there's an error, we'll see it on screen what went wrong. While the localization status text will show us if we're currently localized in our scene. So this is just going to give us some debug information on screen so that we don't have to look at the logs. And so once we have all those functions filled out, we're going to actually return back to Unity to test out to make sure that we can start our AR session and localize against our mock environment. So if you're not familiar with ARDK's Virtual Studio allows you to use our mock environments to kind of simulate what the experience would look like in this kind of environment. So you can simulate an outdoor experience using our mock environments. You can simulate an indoor experience. You can make your own sort of map of an area that you'd like to test in. The Virtual Studio is used for more as well. You can use it for mocking a shared AR experience. You can use it for our video playback feature. But for today, we're going to use the mock environment here. So at the top of your screen, you should see the lightship menu bar item. I apologize that it doesn't show on the Zoom call right here. At the very top, you should see in between component and window, there's a lightship item. Click that. And then from the drop-down ARDK, click on Virtual Studio. And that will open up a new window for Virtual Studio, as you can see in the GIF in the presentation. So when Virtual Studio opens up, you'll want to click on the mock tab and then change the mock scene from none to living room so that we can simulate a living room environment right in the Unity editor without needing to actually deploy this to our phone and go to our living room and test there. And likely our living room is not a VPS enabled point, so it wouldn't work that way. So again,
question, someone has only none for mock scene. Do they need to add something?
if it only says none, it's likely you didn't import the mock environments package earlier. So make sure that double check that you have the mock environments imported into this Unity project. And then under the Virtual Studio window, click on the little like refresh circle next to the none, and that should load in the mock scenes after you've imported the package. And we'll want to change it from none to living room. If it's missing, make sure that you imported the mock environments and then refresh to load the new scenes. And we will see very shortly if that worked or not as the next step, which will just be to press play in Unity and see if we're able to localize against this living room session. Oh dear, my Unity is currently horizontal. Likely if you're facing that issue, it's an issue for some people in Unity, ARDK 2.2.1. What you'll want to do is change the aspect ratio to a vertical aspect ratio. There we go. So mine by default was under free, maybe yours is 16:9. Just add another aspect ratio that's 9:16, or whatever aspect ratio you want to use. The UI will scale appropriately. Just if your thing is it's kind of flipped on its side, apologies, that's a current bug in the version that is being addressed. So if you have your mock scene working and you have your session running, you should be able to press play. You have your mock scene, and the text at the top will change from localizing, and then it just fakes it. 2 seconds later, it'll change to localized. This is all mocking what a session would look like. So in 2 seconds time, it'll just automatically change to localized. And again, if your living room is flipped on its side, you'll want to change your aspect ratio to something that is in portrait mode.
Yeah, that was
Yeah.
helpful. Bill said that the 9:16 aspect ratio worked.
Perfect. And you'll be in a good state if the text at the top had changed to localized, because we're not able to use the Wastebot Anchor service until we're in a localized state. If you try to use the service too early, it will not work. It'll throw an error. Alrighty, I think I will progress. Once you're in a good state, we're gonna go back to the code and actually work on the update function here. What we're gonna start to do is listen for touches in our AR scene. If that touch falls on a horizontal plane, then that was a valid spot where we'd wanna place our Wastebot anchor, and then we'll create our anchor. So the next two things we're gonna do are detect touches. Was the touch on a horizontal plane? If yes, create our Wastebot anchor and spawn our Yeti right there.
Jameka, let's take a quick pause. I think we have
Yep.
a few folks that are saying that changing the aspect ratio has not worked for them. A couple folks say that. And maybe a couple folks that are also behind around after the step of getting the living room in the scene. So could we maybe start by revisiting the sideways camera real quick?
All right, so let me pause my Unity here. So by default, you're probably under free aspect. What you're able to do, if you're in a view similar to this, at the bottom, we'll add our own aspect ratio. So you can see there's a little a plus that says add new item. Let me take a step back. If you're in the game view here, not the scene view. Head over to the game view at the top. So change from scene to game, it should kind of be this black screen with the localization status, orange bar, the 2 buttons. Once we're there at the top, click on free aspect and then press the plus button to add a new aspect ratio. You don't need to add a label or anything, just change the type to aspect ratio and change this to 9:16. So the first box will be 9, second box will be 16, so that we create a new view that's a 9:16 aspect ratio. And then immediately you should switch to that aspect ratio. And when you press play, give it a second to load. It should be flipped properly. Apologies, it's a frustrating bug for some under ARDK 2.2.1, but it is addressed in the next version coming soon. And if your script is working properly, you should localize against this session, and in 2 seconds time, the text will change from localizing to localized. You see, and if you zoom way in, just to show you guys, this is the plane prefab that we had put down for the horizontal planes. It's there, you've seen that there's also the pink debug plane. We could use that, and that works great for this example. If you do that and deploy it to your phone, and then suddenly your whole screen is filled with pink planes, it looks a lot less nice. So for testing purposes, feel free to use the debug plane to understand exactly where the horizontal planes are. For deploying to your phone, I would personally stick with this plane prefab here. How are we? You definitely want to make sure that
Yeah, maybe.
we have Virtual Studio working for everybody, because this is how we're going to actually test our Wastebot anchors.
Yep. Okay, so some people are still sideways.
Still sideways, I suppose.
Yeah, I went ahead and created it, did the aspect 9:16.
Mhm.
And it still doesn't correct it. I'm on a Mac Silicon, not sure if that is part of the issue.
No, it shouldn't be the device. There is another way to fix this in code. I don't have that in my slides, but Braxton, are you able to share? There's a Discord link of a potential solution. Let me see if I can grab that for you guys.
Yeah, I'll try to find it as well. Here.
Okay. Yeah, as another way to fix this if the aspect ratio isn't changing it. I closed Discord on this laptop, so I'll have to grab it in Slack first. If it truly doesn't work, maybe we should put Dodie on vertical surfaces instead. Like, we can move forward. It's just, I can see it being a frustrating experience if you're not able to replicate the living room as a living room should be. So.
Could you also repeat what we have to change to get the Wastebot to work?
We haven't gotten there yet. Right now, all we've done is localized against our living room. So we're not actually.
Well, the localization.
Oh, so in your current experience, it currently isn't changing from localizing to localized?
No, it's not.
Okay, so in the code, there are a few functions that we needed to comment out. We make sure that our on enabled has the session initialized event handler.
Which code?
under the
Which piece of
Workshop
code?
Wastebot Anchor controller, under the scripts folder. And then there's a Workshop Wastebot Anchor controller script that you'll open up in your IDE, such as
Gotcha.
Visual Studio.
Okay.
And that's where we're making our changes to enable localization. And the only functions we've done are essentially the event handlers and localization state updated.
Okay, so you commented those out?
Yeah, so what you're going to want to do is comment them back out so that the code will actually run.
When you say comment them back out, do you mean uncomment them?
Yes, so using your IDE, you can probably do the highlight them all, mass comment, and that'll uncomment them, or just manually delete each / until the code is uncommented.
Okay.
Just whichever method
So
you want to do.
So the update and the on enable?
No,
I-
so the on enable is one, on
Yes.
disable is another,
Okay.
on session initialized,
Could you
and
maybe if it's on session initialize, disable and enable?
yes, and on session ran.
Okay, maybe if you could list those in the chat just to be safe.
Sure thing. Braxton, would you be able to do that?
Sure. I'm working on.
Oh,
I'm typing
sorry.
out the
Another
solution for the camera fix at the moment.
Okay, okay. Let me
Okay, so
Yeah, let's
open up my
see.
chat.
Oh, Bill put it in. Thank you, Bill. Awesome. He's on it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
on session ran, on
Oops.
session initialized, on enable and on disable.
And on localization state updated. If you want, you can just go and uncomment everything you see. We're just going to go method by method as we work on the project.
Braxton put in the code fix for the camera, so maybe you can kind of explain that, one of you guys.
Yeah, so Jameka, I'll let you actually, I can't remember where the math utils file is. If it's easy, maybe just searching under assets. But in Unity, yeah, you can use the search bar to find the mathutils.cs file. And once that pops up, you can open that script in the editor that you're using for the rest of this workshop. And then we're actually going to, and that just, I'll slow down. That's the mathutils.cs. And then once you've got that open, we're going to comment out a few lines and then add one line. So I believe it should be lines 562 through 564, which should say return mock camera configuration. You'll see some things about screen width and screen height. And you can comment out those 3 lines, that whole return statement. And then instead, we're going to add the piece I had put in the message there, which is, I'll paste it again just so it's clear and separate, but we're going to return something else. It's going to be return screen orientation dot portrait, which essentially we're just forcing the orientation of our screen. So after you've done this, lines 562 through 564 should be commented out, and then you can add this on line 65 instead. And hopefully that makes sense.
And did you write
If-
this somewhere?
In the chat
Code
box.
fix.
Yes.
Okay.
Maybe let's give a thumbs up if that helped anyone so we can move forward. Remember, there will be a breakout room for troubleshooting afterwards. Jameka will help people and people can screen share and she can guide them one-on-one.
Yeah. Worst case, we'll fix it in the breakout room. If you have your scene loading, that's where we want to be. If you're able to localize, that's where we want to be.
So, yep, thanks for thumbs up if you're ready.
And I now have my chat open. Okay, cool.
Great, we have a few people with thumbs up, so I think we can go. Yep.
Great. All right, so now we're going to want to edit our update function here. This is where we're going to be listening to the touches on the screen. So what's very, very important is that first line there. If our Wastebot anchor service has not been initialized, or we're not currently in a state that is localized, we don't want to process any of these touches. We want to make sure that we're in a localized state before we start using the Wastebot anchor service. So the following function or following lines are just kind of ways to make sure that we're validating a touch in the current AR session. So once we get towards the end, if we found a proper touch in the scene, we'll actually call our onTouchScreen function that we're going to be filling out with that touch. And then within onTouchScreen, this is where the ARDK is going to help us determine if we've touched a horizontal plane. So we don't have to do any other complex calculations. ARDK is going to handle that. We're just telling it, hey, we want to make sure that this resulting touch was on a horizontal plane, as you can see in the hit test results variable. Once we have determined where our touch was on a horizontal plane, that's when we're going to want to grab the position and rotation and grab this information to create our Wastebot anchor, because we're going to spawn an anchor right there where our touch was. And just for fun, we're going to actually set the rotation to be random so Dodie faces in different directions. So once we have our valid touch within onTouchScreen, the next function that we're going to fill out is the place anchor function. So under place anchor, we passed in a 4x4 matrix containing all of the pose data for that Wastebot anchor. And we'll use the Wastebot anchor service global variable to actually create the Wastebot anchor. That's the line under Wastebot anchor service dot create Wastebot anchors with that pose data matrix. And so now using the service, we've created the Wastebot anchor and we have a payload of it, but this doesn't actually spawn the Yeti. We're going to now spawn the Yeti using the Wastebot anchor's payload information to spawn the Yeti within our scene. So this created the Wastebot anchor itself, but now we're going to actually spawn the physical Yeti in our scene. The Wastebot anchor is just a payload of different strings. So the next function we're going to fill out is the create Wastebot anchor game object, which is going to initialize or instantiate, sorry, the Yeti object prefab within our scene. So after we've created the Wastebot anchor, after we've created the Wastebot anchor using place anchor, we're going to actually create the game object under create Wastebot anchor game object. So this just takes that information and instantiates the Yeti prefab into our scene. And for best practices, we're also applying a tracker to our object here. If we were to move the object, this tracker would keep track of the changes in the game object. So once we have the update, place anchor, and create Wastebot anchor game object methods uncommented, we'll go over back to the Unity editor and test this out. So we'll return to the Unity editor, click play, or not play, click save, and then click play, just to make sure our changes are compiled. And then when we click play, we should have an experience similar to the one on the left, as you can see. Once Unity finishes in a second, and we can place our little doties around the horizontal plane. Nice, I see the edited code worked. I'm so glad. And don't mind me placing all of the doties. Ugh, I don't think I could fit any more doti. It's fine.
That's fine. Let's pause.
Yep.
Once you guys have reached this point, give us a thumbs up. If you have questions, please put it in the chat. Awesome. Stefan has a thumbs up. Elias is good to go. Susan has a question. What do I put in the Wastebot controller for status log and localization status?
So in Unity, let me stop mine. Under the Wastebot Workshop Wastebot controller, under the Workshop Wastebot Anchor controller component here, under the status log, if you click in the scene, there should already be a few options you can choose from. You'll click on the status log option for the status log. And under localization status, click on the localization status object in the scene. So a little text box will show up where you're able to select the appropriate game object that fulfills these requirements. So under status log, there's the status log game object. Localization status will have the localization status game object that you can fill in there. And these are just debug logs to help us understand what's happening on screen without us needing to look at the console to see the different logs or add our own debug logs to add functionality. Cool. How's everybody doing? Can we get some thumbs up if we're able to place doties around? Let me place some doties. All caught up but not getting yetis.
Yeah, I think you have a good number. Oh, Susan.
All right, Susan, we might have to follow up, but that is a-okay. We're going to get you some yetis. So we only have 2 more methods to fill out here. So I want to ask the audience I guess you can cheat by looking at the script, but what key feature is missing right now? There's something that kind of makes VPS special that we're not doing right now. We're just placing doties. What can somebody say or type what it is we're not doing yet? Yes, dang, that was quick. Yes, so we were creating these Wastebot anchors. They're there. And then if we stop our session, they're gone again. So we need to actually store the anchors. So we're gonna fill out our save and load functions here. So we'll store our anchors and then actually be able to load the anchors by seeing if there's any payloads in the Unity player preferences. So 2 functions left, we're almost there. We'll go down to the save local Wastebot anchors function and uncomment that out so that we're actually able to grab all the Wastebot anchors in the scene and then store them into a helper class that I just handed to you guys to help us store the payloads. Serialize those payloads so that we're able to put it into a JSON and then store the JSON into the player preferences for Unity. If you're not familiar with JSON, it's a notation that you can use to kind of consistently store data, send data. If everybody uses the same method for sending data, it's just easier to process. So we're actually storing our data as JSON to then restore later. So we don't have to worry about kind of the nitty-gritty on JSON. We'll just have Unity turn it into JSON for us. So no one needs to waste their time doing that. And once we have saved the anchors into our Unity player preferences, we'll actually fill out our load function. Under our load function, we'll first see, using our key, is there any payloads for us to process? If we've never clicked the save button, then there should be nothing in the player preferences for us to look at. But if there is something in there, we'll want to grab that payload, deserialize it so that we're able to process it, and then use the Wastebot anchor service to restore each payload individually. So remember that payload is not actually the Yeti. The payload is a string that contains information about that Wastebot anchor. So we're going to restore the anchor using the restore Wastebot anchors method, which comes with the Wastebot anchor service. And then we're going to recreate our game object in the scene using the previously created create Wastebot anchor game object, method that we filled out. So again, in the load, we're actually seeing in the Unity player preferences, are there payloads for us to process? If there are, grab each one, restore the anchor payload, and then restore the Yeti on top of that anchor. So now we can test this in Unity. Once you're all ready, just go back to Unity, click save, and then play the session again. Give it a second. And this time, when I place my anchors and I click save, it'll actually tell me it specifically saved 6 anchors, or however many you want to click. And then we'll pretend we close the app, we're coming back in another session. So you press the play button and restart in the editor. And once we're localized, click load, and all of our anchors should be restored. And at this point, I'll give you guys a moment, but this is your working Wastebot anchor app. At this point, you can then deploy this to a device, go to a VPS enabled Wastebot around your neighborhood, and you'll be able to hold it up to that statue, let's say, localize it. The app will tell you once it's localized, place all the doties you want, and then save them, come back, and you'll be able to load, after you localize, load your anchors, and all your doties should reappear exactly where you placed them. If you have a private scan that's already been processed, you can do the same thing. You can just, as long as you're using the API key that matches the account that your private scan is under, you'll be able to take this app, localize against your couch, as exciting as that is, localize against your couch, it will change to localized. And then you could place all of your Yetis around the couch, save them, and then on another session, load them, and they should all, well, after you localize, they'll all appear.
Get a thumbs up, see if everyone's at this point. Awesome, we have a good number of people. Roland, Steph,
Cool.
Wilco, Brendan, Brandon, Bill, Albert. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. Definitely. If you don't have a private Wastebot anywhere, if you need to generate a private Wastebot, use the Wayfarer app to create one. And it'll take maybe 45-ish minutes to process once you've actually uploaded the scan to Niantic. But from that point on, you're able to use that as a VPS enabled location in your house. You can hold up this app to that private scans location and it will localize. So I'll question on, is there a way to delete? You can. So for this example, you don't necessarily need to delete. You can clear the Unity player preferences. You can create a function that will grab them all and delete the delete all of the anchors. We're not storing these anchors in like our cloud. These are all just local to the device. So for this example, Oh, thank you, Braxton. You can use our functions to specifically delete anchors. Like if you want to tap a particular Yeti and get rid of that one. But if you just want to wipe the slate clear, you can just create new anchors and save those instead. Cool. So just kind of to recap before we go into the breakout rooms, at this point, you are able to localize a VPS Wastebot using the Wastebot Anchor API. You can create your Wastebot anchors, which is what we did when we spawned the little doties in. And then you can store and restore your Wastebot anchors with the save and load buttons. You are also able to do this automatically. Let's say you just wanted to save the anchor when you spawn in Doti. You can do that. You'll just need to make sure that the Wastebot anchor has been fully processed. So there are event handlers you'll need to register to, which will tell you when the anchor is ready to be saved. And whoops, went a little fast. There we go. If you had wanted to kind of store these anchors in the cloud so that another user can see those exact same anchors, I definitely encourage you guys to do that in the future. We are actually coming out with a cloud Wastebot anchor service in the future, a Niantic hosted one. So you'll be able to actually host these payloads on the Niantic cloud instead. And definitely encourage you all to deploy this to a device. If you've never done it before, there are a fair amount of steps to get started based on if you're on iOS or if you're on Android. I recommend checking out the Building Our Project section within our basics Lightship guide, which was recorded by yours truly, Braxton, who's been helping out in chat. And you'll be able to, he goes over how you can deploy to Android and how you can deploy to iOS. Cool, Chanel, I don't know if you want to, if we're good on time, if you want to take a break, or should we just go into the breakout rooms whenever you're ready?
Yeah, let me look at the time right now. I think we can go into the breakout rooms. So yeah, thanks for moving to the next slide. So you guys, if you still need help with the tutorial, I'm going to open out a breakout room and you guys can join that room. Jameka is going to be in there. You guys will be able to screen share and she can help you guys out. If you guys want to be part of the Q&A and just the group share, Braxton's going to stay in this room and we're going to go through some of the questions you guys have put in Slido. And if you're done with your troubleshooting, come back to the main group and join us too. So I'm going to do that now. Okay. Let's see.
Cool. I will stop right now so Chanel, you can take over and head over to the breakout room.
Yep. So the breakout room should be open now, you guys. Just click join if you want to go to the breakout room. I think Jameka left. So no one's
Just one,
moved.
right, Chanel? It's just one breakout room?
Yeah, it's only one breakout
Yeah,
room.
okay,
If
cool.
you want to be
Yeah.
part of the Q&A, just stay in this room. I'm going to give everyone a moment to decide.
All right, I'll head over. All right, thank you.
I don't see anyone joining Jameka. You guys are all good? Okay, some people are joining Jameka now. Okay, good. We'll give them a few moments to move back and forth, make sure they're in the right room. If you guys haven't had a chance to submit your questions, feel free to do so. I put the link back in the chat. Okay. Awesome. I think that we can begin right now. Kind of going through Slido.
Awesome. I think everything that's in Slido right now is I've at least tried to give an answer for. So if anyone wants to expand on any of those questions, or if my answer didn't answer the question, please feel free to bring that up as well. Otherwise, we'll keep an eye out for the first person to break the ice here.
Yeah, maybe we can answer some just for recording sakes, because maybe some people
Sure.
gonna watch this later. Yeah.
Yeah, sounds good. I'll address some of the more common ones here. So one of the questions was, when do we plan to release the Android version of the Wayfair app? Since right now only the iOS version is available. This definitely comes up often. So the Wayfair app, as a reminder, is the app you use both for Wastebot, VPS Wastebot discovery, you can use it, as well as using it to scan locations to create new VPS Wastebots or private VPS Wastebots, or contribute scans to existing Wastebots that are not yet VPS enabled. So that's a lot of different scenarios, but basically it's an app that allows you to create scans for VPS. Right now, it's only available via test flight for iOS. The Android version is coming. I know that it's by the end of the year. I think we intentionally haven't provided a firmer date yet, just because things are constantly changing. The date's constantly changing. So I'll unfortunately give you the expect it soon with the trademark symbol of it's coming, but not exact date. Another question was around VPS and how VPS handles different environmental factors like lighting. So take outdoor, how lighting changes outdoor based on time of day, or even indoor locations where it's very dependent upon what the lighting in the room or the indoor area is like. The example given were exhibitions or with a little light. So I responded I added a couple of responses. There definitely isn't like a one size fits all answer to this question, though. I think it's worth prefacing any answer with augmented reality and as well as our machine learning algorithms are very very complex, but also imprecise, but also precise, meaning where a lot of different factors can change things ever so slightly, that there isn't like a perfect we need 80% of the scene to be able to localize or anything like that. It's very it's very vague, but also in the actual algorithm, it's very precise. So the way I would answer that is the best ways to mitigate that are when you have a Wastebot or a VPS enabled location, you can contribute more scans to it using the Wayfair app, for example. And the more scans you contribute, the more data we have on that location. So let's take a park statue, for example. If I want that park statue to work with VPS as well as possible, ideally, I'm going to take as many scans as I can. It could be 10, it could be 50, it could be hundreds. If you have a game like Pokemon Go that actually encourages users to take scans, but that's going to be all times of day, all different environments. So in the best case scenario, I've taken a scan of that statue in the park in the morning, in the afternoon, in the evening. I've taken it in the summer, in the fall, in the winter, everything you can for our backend to have all that data. So when you or your users walk up to that statue, it doesn't matter what time of day, it doesn't matter or it matters less what time of day, it matters less what the environmental factors are, that our backend is going to be able to recognize it because we have so much data on it. So there are ways to mitigate it, but like I said, it's still imprecise. That doesn't mean that you have a family of birds on the statue. If the family of birds are covering all the key points of the statue, which is very unlikely, but trying to think of ridiculous scenarios, maybe we can't localize that day. Maybe it's a peacock and it's blocking 70% of the statue, and now we can't recognize enough of the statue features to actually localize against it. But in general, those are some ways to help mitigate that and try to illustrate to y'all how much of the location you need and how much you need to be able to recognize.
Yeah, thank you. Helps us really understand the functionality of it all.
Yeah, good. And like I said, I think a lot of answers in AR and in a lot of our features, meshing, semantic segmentation, it's funny, as I said, that it's so precise, but also just so many factors. So anything from lighting to how many people are in the background to, maybe the jungle gym in the background is now gone. So now our data doesn't match the real world data.
Yeah.
A lot of things that can help throw that off. So trying to mitigate that and keep scan data as up to date as possible.
Thank you. I don't see any other questions in Slido. Anyone want to just unmute yourself and ask your questions based off, today's tutorial, VPS in general, remote content authoring?
Here's a good one in chat from Susan. Her question is, are Wastebots very specific to an object, or can scans be more general of an area? And right now the answer is still primarily focused on objects. And that object could be a statue is the one that I usually use because it's like the dream scenario. It has very rigid geometry, and usually it's standing out apart from other things. But it doesn't have to be that vivid of a 3D object. I know that, murals work very well because of the different colors and it's very recognizable features. With that said, murals can change, so I don't know if I should recommend that because I know there are murals in my neighborhood that would be great, but it changed 2 weeks later. But just as an example, that things like that can work. And as far as what is too big or small, this is again where it's a little imprecise. I think generally we suggest things that can be taken around human height. So using statues as the example again, something like that would work better than a skyscraper that you're looking straight up at. That is harder to, I guess, get that geometry as well as anything in the background of to really have distinctive features that skyscraper might look like the skyscraper down the street. Long term, of course, you may have heard that at Niantic our mission is to map the world. So eventually, we're increasing the size of the objects and the size of the areas that we can recognize and understand ever so slightly. It's being worked on all day, every day. I can promise you that. But getting it from a point of we recognize an object to we recognize an entire block to we recognize an entire neighborhood to town, city, whatever. It's a huge process, as you can imagine. It sounds even wild to talk about. So that's where we're going, definitely where we're going, but not there yet.
I had a question. I went to several Wastebots in my neighborhood using Wayfair app. I tried to localize at as many as I could. I couldn't localize at any of them. Are just a lot of them just offline right now? And if so, what is the process for adding content to them? Is that something that only Niantic can do right now in this beta stage?
Hold on, let me send you a link to, but nominating. There we go. So a couple of things there. One is in the Wayfair app, there is a VPS little button in the top right, and it's actually like a filter or a toggle, even though it's not that obvious. So I'd be really curious if you go to those locations and then click the VPS toggle if they go away, because it sounds like they're probably not VPS enabled. And the difference is very, very specific, but the difference would be Wastebots are locations that Niantic has, I guess, a fair amount of data on. We generally know the area, we know the object, but we don't quite have enough confidence or enough scans or enough data to have that centimeter precision accuracy of it. And that's what makes it VPS enabled essentially. So it sounds like you probably found a location that we have some knowledge on, but isn't VPS enabled. To get that VPS enabled, contributing scans, there we go. Oops. To get that VPS enabled, I'll toss a link in the chat. And there is a way for you to use Wayfair to contribute scans to that Wastebot, so it goes from not VPS enabled to VPS enabled. So if you live right by a park that's got or right by a Wastebot in your neighborhood that isn't VPS enabled, I would definitely encourage you to go and take some scans. In our documentation, there's also the best practices on that. So for example, standing 5 to 8 meters away, keeping it in the center as you scan, trying to go as much 360 as possible, not always possible. So if that's like a mural, for example, again, you obviously can't go 180 degrees around it because it's sort of a 2D thing, but even going 180 would be really useful. And I believe it's if you contribute 10, we need 10 quality scans of that location for it to go from non-VPS enabled Wastebot to becoming VPS enabled. And the definition of quality scan is definitely a little unclear. So there are things coming to the developer portal I don't remember the date exactly, but it's on the roadmap for the developer portal to have a tracker of this as well. So hey, let's see, developer portal / Wayfair. I forget which one. I think it's Wayfair, where you could actually select, or maybe both. You can select a Wastebot and it'll say this Wastebot has 5 good scans. And then you can go take one or take several, upload those, and that number should say now it has 8 good scans. And then eventually just automatically become VPS enabled. So that's a really long-winded answer of saying they're probably not VPS enabled, and that's how you do it.
Great, thanks. I'll try again. I thought it was VPS was filtered on, but I may not be. So.
And are you localizing using your own app or the examples app or Wayfair, or which?
Just Wayfair.
Just Wayfair. Okay, that should be the most reliable way to do it. So yeah, I'd be curious.
Thank you.
Susan, when you say location, do you mean object? Yes, I guess I'm using location and object fairly interchangeably. VPS location would be focusing on an object. So the mural would be the object / VPS location, yes. Stefan, let's see, is it possible to get GPS coordinates of waypoint anchors when it is placed, or extract GPS coordinates from VPS points? I know it's possible in VPS coverage API, but only active once. So yes, to answer that, getting the GPS coordinates of a VPS location, a VPS Wastebot, you can get the GPS coordinates via our coverage API, which I'll put in chat as well. VPS coverage API. You can use that to get the GPS coordinates of VPS Wastebots. There's not currently a way to get the GPS coordinates of a Wastebot anchor. I'm sure you could finagle a way to do that, but not a natural method that we offer of say, hey, give me the coordinates of this object. No.
Awesome. Thanks for answering those questions. Any other questions you guys have? I'm just checking Slido right now. Oh, no other questions in Slido. Oh, Susan has a question again with current size constraints.
Yeah, that's for the VPS Wastebot objects. That's where I was saying it's a little imprecise, but generally we recommend something that is not terribly larger or smaller than like human height. So something like a skyscraper doesn't work well. And as far as the size constraints for using VPS, I like to illustrate that by comparing it to like a snow globe, where once you've localized with VPS, you're then standing, or the object is then in the center of your own little virtual snow globe, and about 10 meters every direction from that object or from the focal point, you can expect that super precise VPS experience, really the centimeter accuracy. Anything past that 10 meters is where all kinds of different factors start kicking in of that can cause inaccuracies. So as far as what we suggest, we're kind of focused on these smaller, intimate experiences right now. And that's where I said that longer term, of course, we hope to that 10 meters accuracy or 10 meters of really accurate content will slowly inch to 15 to 20 to 30 to 50 to city to conquering the world. No, but just, slowly getting further and further. Timeline for expansion, I'm gonna have to give you that answer of like it's always being worked on, but it's these machine learning algorithms. This is similar to how semantic segmentation works too, of detecting new objects. Is we have working proof of concepts at many different sizes and scales, but how long until we get to a point that we feel confident and comfortable that it's reliable to extend to third-party developers to say, hey, this is going to work all the time? That is a hugely different thing. and we don't really have a strong timeline on like, hey, by X month or by this date, we're going to have that 10 increase to 20. It's really just an ongoing thing. I know that on our roadmap, something like neighborhood scale AR is on the roadmap to be supported by end of 2023. I say that, and I want to put the huge asterisk that, of course, things are constantly changing. That could be earlier, that could be later. These are definitely things we're shooting for, but it's such a complex and ever-changing atmosphere that I don't want to make promises with those dates.
But you can chain several targets together to kind of pseudo expand your area, right? If they were kind of neighboring. So you basically, the experience can take you from one to the next and kind of chain them together, but they have to relocalize at each one.
Exactly. Yes. That was the key point I was going to make, was that it does require relocalization. So you're totally right. You can guide them from one side of the park to the other end of the block to a new location. So you are always sort of getting those precise experiences. The challenge with that then kind of becomes the UX of that. So obviously asking a user to localize and scan constantly can be annoying. So that's where it really depends on your app and your experience and how you guide those users to do that, to see if it makes sense. So I know somebody was talking about historical scavenger hunts earlier. I think that's a great use case of guiding people through. I live in Seattle. If you can guide people from one historical location to the next and have them scan each one to trigger that experience, I think that's super cool and relevant. I think if you're playing a game, think about Pokemon Go, where you're battling, you're going from one location to the next, and then all of a sudden, but then you're constantly being asked to scan your area. That could be cumbersome. So that's just where the UX considerations of an application really come in. And Susan, I see the question around snow globe or cylinder in terms of do you have full height once you're at a location, at a VPS location localized? Yeah, the snow globe, I would describe it as like a perfect sphere. So if things are pretty accurate, 10 meters to the right and left and forward and backward, that would also serve for height as well. And then the higher you get, the challenge then becomes where things, as I mentioned, with like skyscrapers, where there aren't really identifiable objects in there to continue to understand the area, as well as right now it's really difficult to place. So right now with Wastebot anchors, I know Jameka touched on remote authoring, which allows you to create Wastebot anchors, create content relative to VPS Wastebots, all from Unity. So you can very precisely place those things. Right now, it's very difficult to place things that isn't on a surface in an app. For that's, in our example today, Jameka was using plane detection and conducting like a hit test of saying, hey, if you detect a plane, then that spot where we detect the plane, let's put the object there. So if you want to put a bird in the sky as a Wastebot or as a Wastebot anchor, that's actually really difficult to do, because you have nothing to say the z-axis, for example, of like stop here, put it up there, because what you're looking for in the sky is, there's nothing to reference it to unless you hard coded and said, hey, go up 50 meters, or 10 meters from our object and 10 meters to the right, and then that's where we want to put the bird. You can do that, but other than that, that's a little less, well, let's say actually very precise, but less precise in terms of sort of a guessing game.
Oh, okay. Yay, Jameka and Brandon are back. Welcome back. So it seems like everyone's back in this channel. Continue to put questions in the chat or in Slido, you guys, looking at both. Looks like Eric had he just had a comment. Remote authoring. Can't wait.
Remote authoring has been probably the highest sought after feature for a long time with VPS. So as I mentioned in response to someone's question earlier, that right now it does require you to physically go to location to place Wastebot anchors. or come up with your own very clever solution, which is possible, but would not recommend it to do that all from the editor. So that's coming this fall. I don't recall the exact date unless Jameka knows, but that's like super soon. In fact, I think like even October maybe. I don't want to speak out of turn, but
There's a beta happening a lot sooner, let's say.
cool.
I would say that if you're going to attend our road shows, not quite going to be there for Seattle, but high chance to be able to get into the beta for the next road shows.
I see Brandon raised the hand.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you all for putting this on and setting up this workshop. It was super helpful and paced really well. So I want to say that first.
Nice.
My question was about ARDK and Lightship and AR headsets, and if there's been any experiments or how far along you guys are with that, and maybe if and when we can expect to see some releases around that.
Yeah, great question. So right now, 100% mobile focused, since that's the devices that are currently in every single person's pocket. With that said, I know that everything that's built, even though, you know, for example, it's built on top of Unity right now as a Unity package, but all of the modules and all of the pieces of ARDK and things that are coming in the future are being built in a way that it should be very transitionable to mobile or to wearables whenever. I don't know at what point that we really make that transition. I think I'll give the vague answer of when they become commonplace, or when we start to see really clear winners in terms of I guess commonality. So we're very top of mind that we're going to be prepared to make that transition and be the first development kit on or like the leading development kit on headsets whenever that time comes. But as of now, really that's not where the focus is, and I guess no plans to be until there is a plan to be, if that makes sense.
It does, yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. But to follow that up, I mean, I think you'd find everyone at Niantic knows that's the future, that's where it's going. So I guess it's just kind of a from Jameka and I's purview, or from our team here's purview, it's a little bit of a waiting game since we're not directly working on that hardware or the RADK proper.
That makes sense. Thank you.
Perhaps in a follow-up to that question is, based on the community of developers, any sense of which particular like AR headsets are most people, I guess, developing on? Any thoughts on that?
Good question. Yeah, I think outside of the scope of ARDK, I think I've seen a lot of excitement around what the Magic Leap 2s that are fairly recent. I know developers that I work with have been jamming with that. I think I even spoke with a developer a few weeks ago that is taking his best stab at bringing the ARDK to Magic Leap headsets. I very much said that's not supported. It's going to be hard. I don't even know, but anyway, more power to folks if that are smarter than me to figure that out. Yeah, and I see, Nreal, I know that's been brought up a few times as well. And then of course we do have folks, I know that we have a lot of folks that also work around Snap and with the Snap spectacles. So I don't know that I would voice a favor or a preference of anything. But I'm curious what you all think though. Do any of you really work strongly with wearables? And if so, what are your preferences are? I'll be totally honest that I don't have much experience with wearables, and my focus to date has been primarily on mobile. So I'd love to hear other people's thoughts. Let's see, Nreal and HoloLens in the chat. Apple question mark. Brandon, if you know something we don't know, let us know. It's a matter of time.
Yeah, Wilco or Rowan, you guys want to share about what you guys are doing with those headsets right now? So no pressure.
Yeah, I mean, I can share a little bit about what we're doing, if that's fine. So we're part of a research institute in the Netherlands, and we are currently actually focusing on two specific directions. One of them is more focused on yeah, indoor-based multi-user experiences, so more performance-like enhancements, performances and augmented reality. And the second one is closer to utilizing augmented reality in combination with, yeah, different visualization methods. So visualizing human characters inside of your own 3D spaces for specifically for training purposes. And we're actually using headsets rather than smartphones because it's usually a bit more immersive for the user. We find that it allows for more free-flowing experience, as you can utilize hand tracking and actually a lot more features that these HMDs have in comparison to the smartphone-based AR applications.
That's awesome. Are you comfortable sharing why you chose Unreal versus other headsets to focus on?
Oh yeah, of course. We actually used multiple different devices in the past. We used the HoloLens 1 and 2. We have both of them at us. But the Unreals are, well, they're way cheaper. Our partners have like dozens of them available, so we can actually use them for large group-based experiences. And we quite like the community that we see revolving around the devices. And I'm actually myself really looking forward to the new Snapdragon system as well, because they utilize the OpenXR system. And well, I mean, I hope that they are going to be able to actually encompass more systems, because just supporting one headset is just not viable, at least not going to be viable in the near future. You need something that's more accessible and more extendable. So mostly actually like usability and ease of retrieving devices.
Nice. No, it's helpful for my own learning. And I think we definitely have plenty of folks at Niantic that I'm sure do have very strong opinions on wearables, and especially the actual folks that you know, are curating the roadmap and working on ARDK. I'm sure that's, as I mentioned, like top of mind to make sure that it's easily extracted or transferable from like mobile Unity development to headset development.